Welcome to the sanitary. You don't have to have publicity to see that drive, original
I know,
paint,
it's beautiful.
that
And
form,
the
china.
orange tint there, they all have that. I don't know how that's on there, just age.
That is killer.
My sister has 3, I have 3, and I gave 2 back to
So those are
Two
done by
fish.
Dewey Salter. And I saw some Dewey Salters.
right over here. Two little ones.
There they are right there.
Yeah, they're my companions.
Well, Jack, thanks for having us to your house.
Glad to be with
We're
you.
excited to be here in Morehead City.
Thank you.
And this is a book that you published a while back. Is one of my favorite books because I'm a big fan of Ocracoke and Hyde County birds. But right here we have the Percy Care 1 goose that's on the cover of your book. That's the bird right there. Could you tell us a little bit about Percy? Because I think you've met him before, I believe.
Oh yeah, I met him numerous times. Oh yeah. He was a natural storyteller and one of the most gifted people I've ever seen about telling yarns and spins and storytelling. And he worked off and on the water and the land and hunting, guiding and everything. And he had a real rich heritage. And ironically, he said, I've enjoyed my life, I've loved my life, but for all the heartaches I wouldn't want to, that were included, I wouldn't want to go through it again. So I was kind of touched by that line.
Yeah.
But he had lived a very rich life and a very natural, gifted speaker. And all his decoys that I'm aware of will have root heads.
It's black gum root, I believe.
Right, yeah. So I was very privileged to have him make me a set. And I watched him go all the way through them, coming up at different times, and had pictures of each, the heads and the bodies, and when they were still roughed out and so forth. And so I put all that in my second Madame Mesquite book. So he was a wonderful person, and I enjoy his memory, and I love his work, and his memory will live forever thanks to his decoys.
That's right.
I think everybody will appreciate, if you do a decoy or a value one or collect one, it's just nice and wonderful to have a story to go with it.
Yep.
So the meaning is something to it. It's not something that you just go home and put on a shelf. You want the memories that go with it and treasure. So I was very fortunate in the nick of time just to be with him, and so I appreciate that.
Yeah. So Hyde County, we have Lake Madame Mesquite. We also have Ocracoke Island, where we have folks like George Washington O'Neill, Ike O'Neill, Ben Fulcher,
Lawrence Howard.
So on the cover of your book, you have Lawrence Howard here, Percy Care 1 here. Did you put them on the cover because you felt like these were the most significant makers from Hyde County?
Absolutely. Oh, yes. Not that there weren't other good ones in Ocracoke, but Lawrence was my favorite as far as carving. And unfortunately, I never met him, but he was a nice man. I've heard a lot of nice things and good compliments about him, so I appreciate that. And if he were to walk up to my door now, I would know him, seeing pictures of him.
But the form, the paint on those birds were incredible.
Well, so they just loved it. They loved to carve, and they were very artistic, as well as good hunters and hunting guides. So I think it's very interesting that they all love to carve, and that you have to make the best of Mother Nature, use the best woods and so forth like that to make the bodies and the root heads.
Yeah, Percy was a master at that. He took this black gum root, and the goose looks like it's bowing. It's almost like it's praying.
Right.
It's very reverent.
And Percy always said natural growth head. He didn't say root head. And of course, the ones on Ocracoke are primarily limb heads, an inverted forked limb, but he called them natural growth heads. But one thing about them nobody ever noticed except me, not that I'm all that great. No two heads are exactly alike.
Correct.
They're all just a little bit different. But if you make a decoy head from a thick block, from a pattern, they're all essentially alike. But the root head, they're all a little bit different.
Yeah.
And I think that makes them unique.
Yep, I agree. So let's move down a little bit and head over to Portsmouth Island, where we have this root head brant made by Tom Bragg and Jody Styron.
Okay.
You talk about them in your book, which is probably the second or first decoy book I ever picked up, Carteret Waterfowl Heritage.
Right. That was my first book.
It's awesome. Can you tell us a little bit about Tom Bragg and Jody Styron?
Okay. Well, Tom Bragg was kind of the unofficial mayor of Portsmouth Island in the it'd be 20th century, mid 1900s. He passed away about mid 1950s, but he was kind of the unofficial mayor. But everybody loved him, everybody liked him, and the few natives that I interviewed when I started the book, Tom was gone to glory by then. They said I said everything nice about him. He looked after everybody and cared about their welfare, and he was very disheartened that people left the island. Of course, they had no choice in some respects, but he said if I ever die and fall overboard and wash ashore at Cedar Island, shove me back out into the Sound, because he was jealous of everybody getting buried over on the mainland, especially on Cedar Island. So I thought that was kind of cute.
Yeah.
But I feel like I knew him too, the bushy gray hair, and he and Jody lived together, and Jody married one of Tom's sisters, and Tom never got married. This is not really a root head, like a gum root.
Sure.
That's a cedar limb without the fork going out that way. And ironically, so many of them look almost alike, but there are certainly natural growth heads. But we all collectively call natural growth heads all root heads. Yes, where the term started years ago. So now Jody, of course, he lived with Tom, married one of Tom's sisters, but people said he was moody. I shouldn't talk badly about him, but he was moody and ornery. But I've heard a lot of good things about him too. And
they were partners in a hunting camp there on Portsmouth Island?
They entertained sportsmen in their home. They had a nice, elegant two-story home, a lot nicer than what the average person on the mainland lived in. And they entertained the hunters, and they were just good at it. They were used to it. And their sister, Tom's sister, Jody's wife, she cooked for the hunters. And it wasn't all plush or anything. It was kind of primitive. One guy said like to froze to death in the house, but they were used to the cold weather. I mean, you didn't have all the amenities that you do now. But a hunter's used to that because he gets up at daybreak and half freezes to death while he's out hunting, so he didn't think anything of it. So,
breaking ice,
but that was a big industry, hunting guiding and fishing guiding, and so that's what kept them going in the later years. So they all appreciated it.
And you get some big names that hunted at Portsmouth Island. We had Babe Ruth.
Franklin Roosevelt.
Oh, Franklin Roosevelt, okay.
And Pillinger.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. And wherever the game was, that's where people went, no matter how difficult or adverse it was to reach their destination. So that was fascinating, but I'm too tender for that stuff. Thank God I came along when I did.
Yeah.
So
very good. Well, I tell you, we've enjoyed looking at your collection in there. You also have some of these Portsmouth geese, Lawrence Howard geese and brant. It's spectacular. And
they're all pretty much well worn, most of them, and but they used the natural growth head, the limb head and the root head, because the decoys were so heavy they just didn't tote them in a sack. They would take them out and put them in the boat, and then throw them in the water, and then take them out of the shallow water and throw them back in the boat. So they got a lot of tossing and rough handling through the years. So a lot of them were reheaded, but that's the reason they use this material. It wouldn't snap off a blockhead, one was on from a block. So it was very tough.
Yeah, you would get some natural checking, age checks in them or splits, but yeah, you wouldn't break them off.
Right.
We appreciate this time. This has been great.
Okay.
This makes me want to start collecting decoys.